Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today's webinar is in collaboration with Microsoft and Redington together. Uh, Today's webinar topic is how to modernize and migrate to the cloud using Azure. Before I hand it over to Chris, I would like to just brief you on today's agenda. The speakers for today's webinar is Chris, Vince, our technical manager, and Sandeep, who is our technical consultant, who will be driving the demos for today's call. I would just like to move to the agenda slide. Also, please put all your questions onto the in the chat window so that the presenters or the technical consultants can pick them up and answer to you directly. Also, we would appreciate if you can keep yourselves on mute so that we can avoid all the background noises. At the end of the webinar, the decks will be emailed to you as well. So, Gida, if you could please just move the slide because I don't have access to move. So today's agenda is we're going to do a brief introduction to Azure. So all of you who do not know anything about Azure, so this would be a good way to start. And then we're going to talk about the different resource types that is there within Azure so that you can understand what is the exact resource type that will be, that is what you can use. We're going to show you a small demo on Azure virtual machines, how we can do cost optimization using Azure, how you can do monitoring and give you an overview, a small demo on the monitoring dashboards. We're also going to talk about Azure storage accounts and how you can utilize it and how this is going to benefit you. We are going to talk to you also, give you, I think, a small demo around SQL Server as a service, as well as how you can move your SQL on-prem servers to the cloud as a server or as a service, the different types, the differences. And I've already mentioned quite a few times about us doing a few demos within the webinars. We have a few offers lined up for you all as well, which you can utilize if you are an existing or a new customer. So please do stay tuned till the end of the webinar so we can give you a bit more details on that. And of course, we will open the floor for question and answers whenever we see a lot of questions in the chat window. So over to you, Chris, so you can take it from here.
Hi, everyone. First, let me thank you all for joining this webinar. This is our first webinar this year. We've done quite a few webinars last year. We started the series, especially during the pandemic and COVID. And this year we are continuing the list of webinars that we have. We have many to come. We have in February around 4 webinars. This week we have 2 webinars. One of them is today and the other will be on Wednesday. You receive, I guess you already received the invitations for Wednesday webinar. Today, as Archana mentioned, we're going to be talking about Azure in general, an overview about Azure. Because later on there will be a sequence for this webinar. There will be advanced Azure. There will be more topics narrowed into a vertical solution and models in Azure, like Azure Advanced Security. We will have something around Azure Sentinel. We'll have about Azure Information Protection. So we have many topics to come. But this one is the first one for people that have a small idea on Azure or want to know and explore more about Azure. I'll start by introducing the company first for the people that doesn't know us. I can see that many of you are already our clients, and I can see also many new contacts that we don't know. Thank you again all for joining. A quick introduction. We are a Microsoft Cloud partner. We are gold partners for Microsoft, and we operate in the entire Middle East, Turkey, and Africa regions. We've been awarded 4 years in a row Cloud Partner of the Year for the regions, and we only focus on Microsoft Cloud services. This is the only service we provide. So our teams, our technical team, our pre-sales team, they are all related to Microsoft Cloud services. So I'm going to start by introducing Azure quickly for the people that haven't heard about it or doesn't know about it. So Microsoft Azure is a co-location of Microsoft data centers. So instead of having servers on premise or investing in servers and hardwares in your environment, now you have the possibility to subscribe with Microsoft to provide all the headache of the maintenance, of the support to Microsoft. They will be handling all the hardware, they will be handling all the maintenance, all the utensils, the electricity, everything related to a physical data center will be handled by Microsoft in their data centers. And their data centers is all over the world. You have in Europe, you have in Asia, you have in all over the world. So especially now in UAE, the recent data centers have been introduced in UAE, where you have one in UAE North, which is Dubai, and another one in UAE Central, which is Abu Dhabi, and others to come. One is coming in Qatar, another one is coming in KSA. So they are investing a lot, especially in this region, to have data centers also on premise. So simply with Microsoft Azure, instead of investing in hardware and also investing on maintenance, you can co-locate your resources with Microsoft and benefit from many cloud services with Microsoft. So you have different type of resources with Microsoft Azure. You have the IaaS, which is the infrastructure as a service. You have the PaaS, which is the platform as a service, and you have the SaaS, which is the software as a service. So quickly, the differences between the three services, because Azure provides the three of them. A small example on the SaaS service is the Office 365 that you, most of you may, I think, use today. The Office 365 is an example of the SaaS where you can benefit from softwares and services without the headache of maintaining anything, either the operating system or the virtual machine. This is what we call SaaS. The infrastructure as a service is the most famous service that Azure offers and the most used today, which is instead of you investing in servers and buying servers on-premise, you can just create your virtual machines on a portal, in a very user-friendly portal that we will explore today. You can create your own virtual machines. You can scale up, you can scale down. You can add a Linux machine, a Windows machine. It's up to you. You have full control on the VM itself and the operating system within the VM. This is what we call infrastructure as a service. And the benefits, we will be discussing a bit about the benefits on having them also on Azure versus having them on premise. The third one is the PaaS, the platform as a service. The platform as a service is softwares that you can use on Azure and you can run and debug on them. For example, SQL. SQL, instead of you installing SQL on a virtual machine on Azure and handling the headache of the maintenance of SQL and the services of SQL, Azure offers you today SQL as a service where you can just deploy your database on a user interface and access SQL from the web interface. We will also see this today and the different type of SQL on Azure. Small differences between the three services. As you can see, as we discussed in the infrastructure as a service, it replaces your physical virtual machines, storage, server, networking. So you don't have to invest on any of those. You can have all those as a service on Azure. You can create your own virtual network, your own servers, your own storage. Even you can create the type of storage that you need. We'll also discuss this later. In the platform as a service, you don't have to worry about the operating system. Okay, so the operating system is also deployed and handled by Microsoft. If you see here the differences between infrastructure and platform, the operating system and the infrastructure, you have to control it. You choose the operating system and you have to maintain the operating system. Whereas in the platform as a service, no need for you to handle the operating system. You just need to handle the data and the applications. Whereas in the SaaS, you don't have to handle anything. All is handled by Microsoft. You just use a username and password to authenticate and you use the service. We have now, we will show you from the infrastructure as a service, since it's the most famous and most used, we will show you quickly the different type of Azure virtual machines. We're not going to pass, of course, on the different types and what are the differences. You can find lots of documentations online, but we'll give you a hint on why there are many types of virtual machines on the cloud. So it's not about just creating a virtual machine on Azure and then going live and up and running. No, here comes the differences, and you have to know what to choose. For example, if you are hosting a database on Azure, you cannot go and choose machines that are running under B series. B series machine, for example, are used for applications that will be hosted on Apache or IIS because they burst the CPU, but the memory is not that strong. For example, D series and E series are known to be used for database and for SQL. Why? Because they have a strong compute environment, which is a combination of the CPU plus memory environment. For GPU, for high graphics, for example, you cannot use them on D or E or either B series. You have to use them on special machines called NV series, where you have the capability to use the NVIDIA Tesla 60 or Tesla 80 GPUs, and you can use it for virtualizing the GPU or rendering 3D applications or AutoCAD or whatever. So just to summarize here, there are many types of machines. You can see here A, D, DS, E, H, HB. So all of those series are used for a specific service that will be hosted on Azure. And here we can help you and support you to also identify which Azure type will be more suitable for your environment. We have also here, we'll discuss quickly the Azure most cost-effective, which is the Cloud SQL Server. The Cloud SQL Server, as we discussed, is a PaaS, platform as a service, where you will be able to access SQL. Instead of you installing it on your environment, you will have it already installed. You will have it handled by Microsoft. And most importantly, you will have the cost, because the cost will be lower. No need for investing in licenses because you are paying for a subscription. You are having the license. You are having the operating system license also covered, the servers covered, and everything covered in the same subscription. And one of the added value is the availability of the SQL server. You have a highly available environment on the cloud, where, for example, if one of your databases or one of your servers fails on SQL, automatically you have a high availability environment that will run, and you can continue your work. You can continue working normally. This is the availability. Another specification, which is also great, which is the scalability, where you'll be able to scale up and down your SQL or your also virtual machine. Let's say you are running on an environment of 8 cores SQL, but you have been loaded by many users simultaneously that hits the database, and the database is full, or the capacity or the CPUs are full. So automatically you can configure the SQL server to scale up to 16 cores, and then whenever the load is lower, it will scale down back to 8 cores. This way you are saving on cost. You're not paying always for the 16 cores. You are only paying on demand, and you are not also affecting the performance. So this is the main factors and the main advantages of the SQL Server. Another example on Azure, which is the monitoring and the logging part, which is the most important part of that. Because, you know, if you have, today you're not gonna waste your time on accessing a virtual machine or accessing SQL, reading the logs. Who does that? Few people does that. Few people goes into the VM or their servers and start reading their logs. So here you have a very advanced dashboard from Azure that will provide you all the analytics, for example, as the one that we're seeing now. It will give you insights on CPU, average CPU, when it's peaking up, why it's peaking up, what are the alerts that's happening. If there's any performance issue, you can monitor this from one dashboard, and you can also take action. We will go deeply in this topic in the next webinar, which will be related to Azure Advanced Security Features. We will see how we can take response, how we can create our own security fence, how we can also monitor. So we're going to check that in another webinar. Okay. Azure storage accounts, one of the things we will explore today. What are the differences, different Azure storage accounts that Azure usually offers? So you have a variety of that, and every storage account also is used for a specific service. So let's say I need to use a file server online. I'm not going to go and, for example, use an archive storage. So it will be slow, it will be not accessible, it will not be live. So here we have to know what to identify and why we need to choose this specific type of storage. So we have the file type. Okay, the file type is the regular storage that usually it can replace the file server that you have on premise. Instead of using a file server now, you can use the Azure file storage, for example, and you can store your data there. It will be automatically backed up. It will be accessible from anywhere, and it can also be mapped to any virtual machine. But under the file and under the blob storage, you have several types also. You have the hot, you have the cold, you have the archive, you have the premium. When we say premium, it means that you are selecting SSD storage. So the performance and the speed will be way faster. When you are selecting hot, it means it's a bit less than the premium. Cold and archive is usually used for data that you will not be accessing frequently. You also have the disks. The disks are the regular, it replaces the disks that you use and you usually use on your servers. So you can use managed disks. It can either be premium or HDD. You have the archive storage, usually used for very large archive, and the cost is super low. So you can store terabyte and octabyte as much as you can. There's no limit on archive storage, but the accessibility will be slower. If you need to access an archive storage, you need 24 to 48 hours to be able to access the data. This is why Microsoft offers them in a low cost, because it's not directly accessible. You have the blob. The blob are usually mostly used for application development. When you have an application that you need to host online on Azure, you usually use blob storage and you store the data in the blob storage. And we have the HPC cache. The HPC cache is usually used to accelerate data access. So if you have large file base or you have high performance computing and super large files, we've used those type of machines recently for a large company, for example, that renders very large graphics, and their files are, for example, 500 GB or 200 GB. Every file to be accessed, to be rendered, is that much. So we use HPC cache because it will accelerate. But it doesn't mean that if you have a file storage on Azure, you have to use this type of service. It won't be affected. So this is a quick insight about the Azure storage. We will now go for the Azure SQL. Vince, can you take over here and explain a bit about the difference between the SQL?
Yes. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for this detailed brief for all ages. So I will start sharing my screen to show you Azure SQL, like the infrastructure as a service and the platform as a service, as Chris mentioned. Then I'll go like a little bit deeply inside the SQL managed instance to show you like live on my screen. Let me share my screen.
But Vince, just before you go to the demo, please just explain the slide, which is the different type of SQL. And then let's start with the demo by introducing Azure overview, virtual machines, storage, and then we jump back to SQL. But just now, if you can give a brief demo, a brief description on the differences between the three types of SQL.
Sure. As we can see here with on this slide, we have SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine, which is the regular virtual machine where you install SQL on it and you manage this SQL. As Chris mentioned before, we have this is the infrastructure as a service from Microsoft. We have the platform as a service, as Chris mentioned as well. This is everything will be like covered from Microsoft. So Microsoft will take care of your structure, will take care of everything. You will not you will not handle anything. So the backup, the failover, the high availability, the scalability, everything will be handled from Microsoft, and it will be very easy for you to use it. We'll see in the demo how easy you can scale up, you can scale down, you can create like scale set, whereas if you have a high load on any SQL database, it will automatically scale up, then it will scale down. And of course, this will save a lot of cost on you because, like, with Microsoft, you have the option which is pay as you go. So, like everything you consume, you pay for it. If you're not consuming it, you're not be paying for it. This will be very good added value. This happened with Azure SQL Managed Instance and the Azure SQL Database. So what's like the main difference between both of this? With Azure SQL Managed Instance, you have full control on the SQL. So you will have one SQL server. Then under this SQL, you will create all your SQL databases. And the main difference is like with Azure SQL Managed Instance, all your database will share the same resources. So let's say we have a database with 4 cores, 32 GB. So all my database will share this resources. But with Azure SQL database, you will manage the database as it is. So let's say you will specify for each database like how many cores you need and how many RAMs you need for each and every database. We can see this on the demo and how you can manage this. So I think we can go through the live demo with Sandeep. So where we will cover virtual machine, we will see everything related to the virtual machine, the scalability, everything. Then we'll see the SQL, of course, with the live demo. Then we can see all the storage account, and of course the monitor will have overview on it.
Thank you, Vince. Thank you for the good afternoon, everyone. I'll share my screen and I'll start the demo over it. Just give me a second. Hope everyone can able to see my screen. Here
Yes.
today we are on Azure portal where you can see the portal view. Here, as we told, like as we discussed before, we have different types of resources available over here. Like let's start with the VM and we'll continue with the other things. You can see, like as we told, any time of point of time we can start with low specs and you can scale up to maybe like 2 TB of RAM with and 480 cores of CPU. Again, like here we'll get an option for manual scaling and auto scaling as well. First, I'll show you the specs and the virtual machines that are available sizes on Azure. Then we can continue it further. Here, and you will get a detailed description as well, like what purpose it can be used while selecting the virtual machine. If you can see, like I have selected one virtual machine, which is like as of now it's on with 2 core 4 GB RAM. And if I want to increase the size within 2 minutes, I can increase the size. Like let's say if I want to increase it to there are different types of series here. D series for the general purpose compute and the E series for entry level workloads for the deployment and testing, and the E series for the next generation with high memory loads.
So yeah, if you are wondering why you have all these series, these are some predefined, like everything is predefined from Microsoft. So we cannot choose we need this type of cores or this type of RAMs. So each series Microsoft specified, like, because we have different type of CPUs. So each series will have different CPUs. We might see like 2 cores, 8 GB RAMs, with one series, and another two cores 8 GB RAM with different series, but one will be more expensive than the other one because it will have different types of hardware.
Different types of hardware, and the performance will also differ from the low specs virtual machine like in the B series, and the same specs virtual machine in D series and E series as well. Like let's say if I was in B series virtual machine and I want to upgrade it to the 4 core 16 GB RAM, I'll just select it and click on resize. If the VM is turned on, it will just reboot it and the size will upgrade. It will take maybe 1-2 minutes to resize it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this is one of the very added value while using Microsoft, the scalability, as we mentioned. You can very easy scale up and scale down the virtual machine based on your need.
Yeah. I just scaled up.
Sandeep here have a question. Uh, when you scale up the machine for 2 hours and then you scale it down to two cores 8 GB after that, how do you pay? You pay for it. Let's say I scale it up for only 2 hours. I pay only for the 2 hours, or I pay for the entire month. How does it work here?
No,
The billing.
you'll be paid only for 2 hours. Like let's say whatever the time you have scaled up, the higher specs, only for that particular time you will be paid for that particular machine specs.
Okay.
In this case, we have done it manually. We have any critical application that we know the traffic is coming regularly by end of the day or mid of the day, where you can add the machines to the virtual machine scale set, and it will automatically scale up and scale down according to the policy that you triggered.
Okay.
I'll show you that way as well. Next, after the virtual machine specs that we have seen, next we'll talk about the storage, the different types of storage available. Like if you can see, this particular disk is using the SSD. Here we will have a different types of. There will be four types actually. One is the standard HDD, standard SSD, and the premium SSD, and the other category is ultra disk. As we talked about the HPC cache, it comes under ultra disks where it has an higher throughputs and higher rate of uh, data transfer speeds. Like usually we for the normal application and business critical applications, if it is coming for the front end, we can go with the standard SSD for the performance. While it's coming to the back end, we recommend to go with the premium SSD or the ultra disks. Here, like whatever the disk you select, you can go up to 32 TB for a single disk that you can attach to a virtual machine.
So
The
we
thing,
can even enlarge the disk. It's scalable as well.
yeah, it's scalable as well. Like you can start with 32 GB of storage. In future, while the data is growing, you can go up to 32 TB on single disk. The thing is, in the disk, you can only scale up and you cannot scale down as you are using that particular disk as a reserved instance. The next one is virtual machine scale set. In this virtual machine scale set, you can create a scale set with one virtual machine, and you can define the rules that like let's say if the CPU percentage is more than 80%, you can trigger the scale set. Automatically it will create 2 to 3 virtual machines in the parallelly, and it will load balance the load across the virtual machines. To show the demo, we don't have it in our tenant. Here, if you while creating the virtual machine, we have so many flavors of OS are available. Like not only the Windows, we have Linux, Red Hat,
So if you need a virtual machine to be inside a scale set, you need from the beginning create a virtual machine scale sets.
Yes.
Then provision this virtual machine inside the scale set. This is very important to know because you cannot convert a regular machine to a scale set machine.
Exactly.
So first, you should create the virtual machine as a scale set, and like the important thing, like you will not even know anything. A second virtual machine will be created, and the load will be spread inside these two virtual machine. And whenever the load, you don't have any more load on the virtual machine, the second virtual machine will disappear.
Yes. And not only that, we have some other third-party OSs as well, like with predefined configuration that you have. You can deploy them and use it directly on Azure.
Sandeep, here also a question that might be asked. If I don't want to create a virtual machine with a specific operating system, and I want to migrate, I want to do a migration from my on-premise environment to
Yes.
Azure. Am I
Yes.
able to migrate my image and my OS, my server as is from on-premise to cloud?
Yes, we can migrate as it is, like whatever the pinpoints that are available, whatever the configuration that is available in the on-premises, it can be migrated exactly the same with same settings. The only thing that it will change is the IP address.
Okay. So I can move all my virtual machines from on-premise to cloud
Yes.
just by a tool that will move my images and it will run.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the minimum supported OS is 2008 R2. Before that, you are not able to migrate it directly.
Okay.
Yeah. Whatever the platform is, like let's say if the virtual machine or it's a physical server, whatever it can be, if the OS is 2008 R2 and above, you can directly migrate to the Azure with the same OS without refactoring the server from scratch.
Okay.
Yes, the next part is like I'll talk about the high availability of the virtual machine. So where you can I'll show some settings for the high availability that you can manage high uptimes. Like you can choose the proximity group. Like if you want to have a low latency applications, or you can choose a high availability sets where you, in case of any maintenance is happening, can select the fault domains and update domains so that according to that the maintenance window will be scheduled from the Microsoft. If you can see, there is an availability set over here, and there are one or two VMs. And again, this availability set should be created while creating the VM. Like let's say if you created the VM and you cannot add that VM to the availability set, it should be done while at the initial stage itself.
The reason why here, just to explain more about the availability set and the fault domains, the thing
Yes.
is that imagine here that you have a data center on premise, but you need to create two virtual machines separate from each other, completely separate. For example, you need to put them on a different power. You need
Yeah.
to put them on different power, different network, different also location, but on the
Yes.
same data center. So in case you have a power failure, the second server will not be affected. Or if you have a network failure, the second server will not be affected. So the same is happening on Microsoft Data Center. When you put two machines or more than two machines on the same data center, having the same availability set, the two virtual machine will be completely separated and isolated on two different network hardware, not the network as a virtual network and IP addresses, different network hardware and different cabling, different power. Everything will be completely different. Here you will have the optimal SLA from Microsoft. Usually Microsoft provides you by default 99.9% uptime if you have one virtual machine running. But if you want to have the 99.995% uptime, you need to have a high availability, a minimum of two machines running on one availability set. Okay, so basically this is the big difference. And speaking of high availability, just because this is a common question that we usually hear, is that Microsoft doesn't support anything related in the IaaS. When you have a virtual machine, whatever is happening inside the virtual machine, Microsoft is not responsible. So you might install a malware, you might get hit with a ransomware, you might install malicious softwares on your virtual machine. Microsoft does not have access at all, and Microsoft is not responsible if your machine fails to run or your operating system fails to run due to a software failure inside the VM. Microsoft is only responsible for the hardware. When they provide you an SLA, it's an SLA on the hardware, not on the software. Whereas on the platform as a service, they are providing for both the hardware and the software. Okay, just to have this clear.
Yeah, but Microsoft is giving us the tools to monitor everything, of course, and we can install it inside our virtual machine, some monitoring tools, where we can have some precautions and everything. We'll discuss this on our security webinar.
Yes.
Sandeep, if you can show us like the auto shutdown and this stuff going forward with the VMs.
Sure.
So yeah, like as we told you, we have the pay-as-you-go option with Microsoft. So here you can save cost as well. I'm focusing more about saving costs. So like if you don't need your virtual machine to be on 24/7, you can turn it on only like the needed time. You can create auto shutdown rule where it can easily shut down your machine and then turn it on the next day. And knowing this will not affect your virtual machine at all, not like the physical machine that you have. If you turn it off and on, it will be affected. No, this will not affect your virtual machine performance.
Yeah, this auto schedule feature can be enabled in two types. You can directly do it from the VM, or you can do with automation account as well. You can manage with tags where you can put the schedule for turn off and turn on. In this one, like you can put the schedule and you'll get email notification as well. To telling that,
Sandeep, your voice is not clear now.
yeah, sorry. Now you are able to hear.
Yes.
Yeah. Uh, while shutdowning also, it will send you the notification to your email that this particular machine is shutting down, so that you'll have a track of it at what time it's shutting down exactly. You can configure in that way, and with the automation account, you can manage the turn on also, where you can define the schedules from the automation account, and it will.
Yeah,
I'm
and
here
here we can use
to
the
clarify
tagging
one
as well.
thing. How the billing works here. Whenever the machine is on, you will be paying only for the machine hours on an hourly basis. If you are turning on the machine for 10 hours a day, 30 days a month, you will be paying for 300 hours instead of 720 hours. But here the billing is separated because this also creates a confusion with everyone. Where, for example, if you have your virtual machine, you have two types of billing. You have the compute hours that you are paying for, which is how much your virtual machine is running. You pay it on an hourly basis, and you have the disk, the disk cost that you pay, which is a flat fee. Why? Because Microsoft will, for example, if you turn off the machine for 10 hours a day, you will still be paying for the disk because Microsoft is reserving for you a disk, and your data is also there, even if the machine is off or on. So you pay for the disk for 24 hours for a month on a monthly basis, whereas for the compute hours, you only pay for whatever compute and operating system. You only pay for whatever you are consuming during the months. This is how the billing is separated.
Yeah. If you can see, yeah. If you can see the jobs here, like it was triggering every day at 7:30 p.m. for the shutdown. We have configured only for shutdown. Like let's say if you forgot any unimportant machines that you have turned in the morning, if you forget it, it will automatically trigger a shutdown every day at 7:30.
Yeah, and we have the option of the tagging here. So let's say we can tag 3-4 virtual machines, then the automation account job will run on these tagging virtual machines.
Yes.
So
And it's very
yeah.
easy to filter as well. Like if you're filtering with any tags, like let's say I have put WVD and the tag is 1. If I filter with tag, I'll get all the machines which are tagged with this particular tag. Yeah. The next one is like moving forward, we'll discuss, deeply into the SQL. Like
Sandeep, before
yes.
moving to SQL, can you show us like the accessibility to the virtual machine and the networking?
Sure.
So the
Yeah.
network security groups
Yeah.
and
Sure.
how the accessibility.
Yeah. Just give me a second. Here, while coming to the network, like by default, you'll get one firewall from Microsoft where you can allow and block the ports for the incoming and outgoing traffic. This is the network security group where you can enable the rules on it, and here even you can make the IP static, even the public IP and the private IP, make it as a static, and you can define the DNS servers if you have any DNS servers on your network. This is the network security group that I was talking about. Here you can see the inbound and outbound security rules, and even I can create a new security rule very easily where it can allow the traffic to
Yeah.
the particular VM.
So we
I'm opening port 22 for SSH. Just click on add. It will automatically create a rule and it will allow it to the virtual machine.
Yeah. Not only this, like with each and every virtual machine, you can have for free, like it will be like a firewall for you because like you will be able to control all the layer 3 rules. We have some added predefined rules. Somebody can click on the add button.
Yes.
So you can specify the source, click on the source. Up, yes. So the source can be IP address. So let's say you can secure connecting to this virtual machine through port 3389 from a particular and allowed from a particular IP address. So you will block all the connection and you will allow this particular IP address. Here you will secure connecting to your virtual machine. You are securing your network. You are securing your machine for free. Like you can use the same network security group, same one for all your virtual machine, or each virtual machine can has her own network security group. So
Yeah.
this is very important feature for me. I recommend this, and it's very added value feature in Microsoft.
Yeah. In the
And
same way, you can see the destination as well, whether we can, if you want to route the traffic to specific IP or the virtual networks to the virtual network, you can select it over there.
yeah, I can see a question here. By default, you will get the ports denied. You can open your port, like the desired port. You can open it by yourself.
Yeah, while creating the virtual machine, like if it is an Windows virtual machine, by default 3389 will be open. If it is a Linux virtual machine, port 22 will be open via
But
public. Yeah.
but you can disable it.
Yes, I
While
can
creating
disable
your
it.
virtual machine, you can disable it. So
Yes.
it's your decision.
Even after creating it, I can just delete the rule. It will block the port.
Yeah. Sandeep, go
Sandeep
through the
here,
networking.
also a common question because opening the port 3389 is very risky, and you
Yes.
might, as I said before, the machine might be hit by a ransomware, and Microsoft will not be responsible if the machine is encrypted if this port is open. So,
Yes.
what are the common secure way on accessing this machine if we want to prevent the port to be opened, the port 3389 to be opened? So,
Uh,
what are our options here?
Here we have two options. One is like you can deploy a network gateway and configure the point to site VPN to access it with public IP. And we have another feature called Microsoft Bastion. Like it's a kind of web-based console to access the VM. That also we need to configure before we need to deploy it on our tenant before accessing it.
And let's say because you mentioned the virtual gateway.
Yes.
Virtual gateway, you are creating a site-to-site VPN with the on-premise environment, correct?
Yes, you can connect in that particular way. Like if you can, if you want access from the inside your on-premises network, we can establish a site-to-site VPN and access it with the private IP. And the other, we have one more option, like it's a point-to-site VPN or SSL VPN, where you can install a thin client on the machine and you can access it with these are the thin clients that are available on my machine. I can just click on the particular network, the thing that I want to connect. I'll be connected, authenticated with the certificates, and I can access that particular machine with private IP.
Okay, and this will work even if I'm not connected to my on-premise network.
Yes,
Just,
it will work.
so I can
anywhere
access it anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Sandeep, we still have the backup and restore process to
Yes.
show how easy we
Yes.
can back up, and we can specify like the backup period and how easy we can process and what are the type of restore.
Yeah. While coming to the backup, you can directly select the backup that we are getting from Microsoft. Here you can just go to the VM place and you'll get an option for backup. Here you can create a policy. Like in the backup, there will be two types, like locally redundant and geo redundant. Local redundant in the sense like the backup will be stored on the same data center, and if it is an geo redundant, the same copy of backup will be stored in 3 different locations. While enabling the backup, you can create the policies, like at what time you want to create an backup frequency, and how many days you want to retain that backup. Like the minimum that you can do it like 1 day, and the maximum you can keep it for 10 years. uh, it depends upon the resource vault. If you don't have any resource vault, you can directly create it from the backup option that is available over here. Like you can just click on create new one, and it will all automatically pop up over here. And the plan, that the policy that you can you'll by default you'll get as 180 days, or you can edit the policy, and you can tweak them according to your requirement. Like let's say if you don't want to do it daily, you can configure it as weekly on Sunday at 11:30 a.m. this particular time. And if you want to put any type of initial snapshot recoveries, you can configure it. And the next one is the retention, like how long you want to make it retention, like 12 weeks or 52 weeks. According to your requirement, you can modify it.
Yeah. Can you show us the restore if we have one backup machine?
Yes, sure. Just give me a second.
But here one question also, Sandeep. If I have a virtual machine of 1 terabyte,
Yes.
when the backup is running on a daily basis, how does it run? Is it differential? Does it take every day an image? How
No, it's always an incremental backup. Like let's say if you have any made changes every day, the incremental backup will be take care. And once in a month, it will take the full image backup. Rest of the days, it will do the increment.
Yeah, but when it does the increment, let's say you backed up my virtual machine today, and my next backup was supposed to be tomorrow morning, but in the afternoon, an employee deletes any file. So the next backup, it will override, or I will be able to go back to my version, to my old version, when I
No.
restore the machine.
Yes, you can go back to your old state. Like let's say you can choose this. If it is retention of 30 days period, you can have 30 restore points. Like you can go back whatever the day you want, and you can record the file that you have
Yes,
lost
Chris.
earlier.
I got your point. Every day you will have an image of your backup. So every day you will have your data as it was when you back up this virtual machine. So you will not lose any data. But the thing here that your backup is running every day once in a row. So every day you'll get one backup and you can restore your data.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the backup vault that are available. Here, once you click on it, here by selecting the virtual machine, we will get an option to restore entire VM, or even you can recover the files on file level as well.
So you can have a full VM restore where it will create another VM
VM.
for you. The
Yes.
good thing here that it will not stop your VM, then create on top of it. You have the option to create another VM and keep your VM running if you need to access like some old data. And you have the option uh,
To
to
replace the
restore on top, yeah, to replace, to restore on top of your existing virtual machine where you will have all your networking and all your setup as it is. So it's very important feature here. And we have the file recovery backup. If you need like you said, you need to recover only a file. You don't need to restore all the VM. You can restore a file.
yes. And
Here, if I have my machine running live, I just want to restore another image of the machine in parallel without overriding the live machine.
yes,
Just to run a specific testing for one day, and then I want to delete my machine. Is this possible?
yes,
Yes,
it is
this is
possible.
what I just mentioned now. You can
Here we'll
restore
get an
another
option
virtual
to
machine in
replace.
parallel.
Hmm.
Here we'll get an option to replace the existing machine or create a new machine with the new name, so that it will be the image will be the same and the data will be the same, but it will create as an other machine.
Okay.
And if the backup is enabled with geo redundant, you will get an option to restore it in the secondary region as well. Like the same machine, you can restore it in the other region. Select the restore point and select the secondary region. If it is in West Europe, the automatically the secondary region will be North Europe, and if it is in UAE, the alternate region will be the central UAE central. Yeah, while coming to the networking part, like you can specify the subnets, whatever uh, the tweaks that you want to get on it, you can do everything over here. Even you can limit the application specific subnet, like if you want to run only these particular applications on this particular subnet or the network, you can specify that as well. See here, we have an address space of 192 series, and we have a same default subnet over here. And here I can control the subnet level security group. I can attach a security group on the network level where I can open the ports throughout the network wide, close the ports throughout the network wide. And if I have any routes that you want to route the traffic to specific IP address or the virtual appliance, can route it through the route table. And here we have an service endpoints where, like, if you want to run only these particular services on this particular subnet, you can specify it over here. Like, let's say I want to only access the give the access to the storage account on this particular subnet. If I enable on this, like Only if the storage account is created in this particular subnet, it will be accessed by the VMs or by the if you are accessing from the point of site VPN. Not only the storage account, we have some resources that are available like the SQL and the key vault for the secret management and all. See,
Yes.
if you want to dedicate the subnet for only the managed instance, you can dedicate it only for the managed instance of SQL. And here we can see the connected devices to that particular virtual network. If you have any devices that are deployed on the network, you can see it over here. And you can enable the DDoS protection as well. From the public IP addresses, for it you need to create a DDoS protection plan, and you can apply on it.
Yeah, this is a managed service from Microsoft where it will protect you from the DDoS attacks.
Yes. And if you have deployed any firewall on Azure, you can integrate with the virtual network where it can take care of it, where you can directly manage all these settings from the firewall. And the security, here you will get a recommendations like if any ports or any particular VM is exposed to any vulnerability or any threats, you'll get the recommendations over here. And we'll get the diagram as well, like let's say what are the machines are connected to any of the virtual network. It will show the diagram like this particular machine is connected to this particular with this IP on this particular network. Uh, yeah, the next one is the storage account, like where we have talked about the file storage, where you can directly attach the
Sandeep,
storage.
before we move to the file storage, can you just give us an idea about the virtual network gateway and the connections of the site-to-site VPN quickly, how it works?
Sure. Virtual network gateway is like it's a kind of a firewall or the gateway device to establish the site-to-site VPN from the Azure network to the on-premises network, where you can configure it like there will be a SKUs. According to the SKUs, there will be, the performance will change, like the basic SKU and the standard SKU and the performance SKU. The bandwidths, like the throughput will change according to the SKU. Like if you can see. Uh, it will work on IPv2 protocol for the secure connection, secure tunnel from the on-premises to the Azure, and you have to create a different subnet for the gateway where it can talk from on-premises subnet to the gateway subnet. From there, it will route the traffic to the internal network. The good thing is recently they have upgraded the thing on Azure. Now it's supporting the DNS DNS as well. Like even if you don't have the public IP, you can establish the site-to-site VPN.
And here the good thing is that the site-to-site VPN, you don't need to have any specific model or any specific brand used on-premise. So basically, with most 90% of the on-premise firewalls, can work with you can establish with them a site-to-site VPN with Azure. So there's no specific requirement except having the firewall supporting IPv2 protocol for it to have. And here in the connections in the virtual network, as just quickly to brief you, when you have a virtual network gateway and you're creating a connection, the difference between basic and high performance is the throughput, as Sandeep mentioned. It starts with 300 megabyte per second speed, and it can go up to reach 10 gigabyte speed when you go to the site-to-site VPN, which is of course currently impossible to have because you should have the same throughput on your on-premise environment. So this completely differs, and the cost will differ here based on the type of the VPN that you will be creating. And also, when you create a site-to-site VPN, which is the connections here where Sandeep is mentioning, you can create, and for example, if you go to the type VPN gateway 1, you can create up to 10 nodes or 10 connections free, and then every connection, every extra connection later on will be charged. So let's say you have 10 branches or 20 branches, you can go up to unlimited branches to connect them to Azure if you have different firewalls on every branch. So this is also possible on the connection level.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Sandeep. Please just show us how the connection is established and how
Yeah.
do you connect.
Sure. After deploying it, you can click on the add device, like add connection, and you can specify it as a site-to-site IPsec. Then it will automatically populate the Azure gateway, and here you need to create a local gateway, like with the details like on-premises IP address, name, and the IP address on the subnet. It can be FQDN as well, like as I told you, now it's supporting the DINE DNS. You can put the FQDN as well. Once you created on it, created the local gateway, then you need to specify the pre-shared key and the IQV. It should be IQv2. Once it's created, you'll get an option to download the configuration. Uh, it's a generic configuration where it can be done with any of the vendor while downloading the configuration. Like we have some vendors and the generic samples as well. Like if you are using any of these brands, you can directly select the device and the family so that it will automatically give the configuration according to that family. Or if you don't have that, you can directly select the generic sample and you'll get the configuration file. Once you open the configuration file, all the necessary details is available over here, like the IP address, subnet, local subnet gateway, and pre-shared key, lifetime, and everything will be over there over here. According to this, you can configure it on your local firewall.
Yes, we have a question from Raad. Is hybrid feature available? Yes, Raad. Using the site-to-site VPN, you can have a hybrid environment with your local environment, so you can run both environment together, and they will be connected through a site-to-site VPN.
Yes. Here you can see the data in and data out as well, like how much data is flowed from the on-premises to the Azure and from Azure to the on-premises. Even you can monitor and get the triggers like for the alerts for the site-to-site VPN. Like in case if it is down, you can select the metrics and you can create an alerts. Yeah, this is about the gateway and the virtual network.
Yes, so let's jump to the storage account. I
Yes.
think we are tight on time.
Yeah. In the storage account, we have different types of storage account, as Chris has mentioned before. Like we have blob storage, file share. According to the, we have containers. Container inside of the containers, we'll have a blob account on the storage container, where you can host an application data over here, or if you are migrating any uh, on-premises server, first it will store in the blob container, then it will convert as a virtual machine.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of unmanaged storage where it will store the data over here.
Yeah, the added value of like using the Azure storage account is the low cost of the storage. We can use it like it's better depend on the application, of course. So here we'll have like a lower cost on the storage, and of course we can define how we will store our data. As Chris mentioned, we have the archive tier, we have the cool and the hot tier. So first, for the hot tier, it will be the data that will access it frequently. Then we can specify a policy where we mention how data is transferred to the cool tier. The cool tier, it will be less expensive, but it can be accessible, but it will not have the same speed like the hot tier. Then we can specify another policy where we can specify for how long the data will, if it's not accessible, to move it to the archive tier. But the archive tier, we need to request from Microsoft. It needs 24 hours to 48 hours to be accessible. So, Sandeep, if you can show us like.
Yes, this is
Sorry,
the
here just basically, Vince, a question. If I have 20 terabyte on the cloud, but for example, I have 2 terabyte, which is files that I access frequently every day, but I have 18 terabyte that usually I don't access. Is it possible to create a policy saying that after 3 months, all the data that is not accessible for more than 3 months, to move it to the cold tier? And then after that, if the data is not accessible for more than 1 year, move it to the archive tier? Can it be automatic?
Yes. This
yes.
is the added value of the policies and the storage account.
Here in the lifecycle management, we can create a rule that, like, let's say if the data is not accessed more than 3 months or 2 months, you can specify the rule and it will automatically move to the archive storage.
Okay.
This is the file lifecycle management console where you can add the rules so that according to your behavior on that file, it will automatically move to the archive, and when you request it, it will take 24. If it is in the archive storage, it will take, you can see the file but you're not able to access. It will take 24 hours to get back to the online.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we have the file shares. Sandeep, before jumping to the file share, like, can you show us the client, how we can see the data on-prem as well?
Sure. There is one client application called Azure Storage Application Explorer, where you can take the access of the storage accounts on premises, and you can upload the data to the storage account very easily, and it's really fast while uploading and downloading the data with the Storage Explorer in storage account.
And the URL, if you want to store the data from any application?
Yes, like you can directly back up the SQL to this storage account while doing the maintenance plan. You can directly put the storage account to store the backup in the storage account. It will be similar like this. It's on Azure, like the same client that can be accessed the as an application as well. You're able to see all the storage accounts and the blob accounts that are available over here. With this, I think you can directly map the disk the storage account to your laptop as well. I don't know why it's taking time.
Don't worry, we can jump to the Azure file share. It's the same interface.
Yeah, it's the same interface where you will get some more options to download and upload and to map the drive directly to the PC.
Oh, okay.
The next one is the Azure file share, where you can do the SMB transfers, like the share folders You can copy paste and you can integrate with your Active Directory as well to have the permissions on the folder level, and you can very easily mount that particular storage account to your laptop or to the user account. If you can see my screen, I have attached the share folder from the storage account to my laptop directly with the FQDN. I can copy
So
paste it, whatever I create it over here, it can be showed over there.
So Azure File Share will act as your file server because you can connect it with your local Active Directory, and you can connect to Azure Active Directory as well. So it's a platform as a service. So Microsoft is taking care of your OS and everything. You're just having the file storage, and this file storage you can authenticate with your local and Azure Active Directory, and of course give the permissions based on this. And you can easily map it to any laptop, any OS, any Windows, and like you will have a public FQN. No need to worry now about the security, about the ports, about everything. You will have FQDN from Microsoft, while Microsoft is taking care of everything for you. You just need to put FQDN and it will be mapped for your users.
Yes. I have created one text document on my laptop. It's automatically appearing over here. Even you can manage the backups and snapshots of this particular folder. Like if you want to take the snapshot, you can enable the snapshot lifecycle, and you can enable the backup as well to this storage account.
Mhm. And you will pay based on what you reserve.
Yes. What is the data available in that particular storage account? They'll be paying for that amount.
Oh.
So here to summarize, if I have a file server on premise, joined to the Active Directory, where I created folders and permissions and accessibility, can I
Yes.
replace this option by Azure File Share?
Yes, you can. You can directly migrate the file server to the storage account.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I
And
have one.
whatever I add on the cloud on the Azure File Share, it also syncs to my on-premise, and whatever I add to my on-premise, it syncs to the cloud.
Like if it is a normal folder, if they are using the same folder on premises on Azure, it will sync. Like let's say whatever you add the files on the same storage account, it will happen. Like if it is in two different, again you need to sync it manually.
Okay, so if I have two file servers, one in Dubai, one in Abu Dhabi, for example,
Okay.
and I have the Azure File Share connected to both servers, can I use Azure File Share also to synchronize my server one with server two?
Yes, there is one more option called on Azure, like Azure File Sync. This is the scenario where it comes to the point. You can have two endpoints, two or more endpoints, and you can replicate the data. Even if you don't have any site-to-site VPN between the servers, you can use this option and you can sync the data across the locations.
Okay.
Yeah, but we should mention here that is not like the DFS
Yeah.
solution where it's live sync. So the sync will be scheduled each 2 hours, 3 hours. It will happen. So it's not
Yes.
live sync.
Live sync. Yes. And if you can see it here, it's the Active Directory is showing as configured. That means the storage account is joined to the Active Directory. And even you can see the Active Directory domain. If you can see the domain, it's showing our domain. And if you can see it over here, you can specify the storage account size. I have mentioned it as 5 TB, and you can go up to maximum 100 TB.
And of course, the tier that we spoke about it.
Yes,
Now
it
it's
will
hot
be
tier. Then you can create policy that to be cool.
full.
Uh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so let's jump to the monitoring, then we'll finish with the SQL.
Sure. Here for the monitoring, we have created some dashboards like to monitor the input and outputs of the VMs and the SQL. If you can see it over here, like we have some good dashboards to see the insights of the VMs. Like this is a one dashboard that we are monitoring the CPU credits, like what exactly the happening on the CPU. And here we are monitoring the runs of the logic app, which is there in the Sentinel. And here we are seeing the network ins and out of 2 to 3 VMs. You can see it on the down. You can see the network total, out total, and the inbound flow average, and the total network sum. At any point of time, if you want to monitor anything regarding to the network or the CPU after creating the dashboards, you can just go directly onto the graph, click on it, and it will automatically take to that particular resource, and you can create an alert. Like let's say if I want to create an alert, like if the network out is more than 1 Mbps per minute for more than 15 minutes, you can create a rule where you can define the specific parameters, and it will automatically send you an email notification to check into it.
Yeah, so here you can monitor all your resource type in one dashboard. No need to
Yes.
go inside each resource and check the monitor and check the CPU. So you can create one dashboard where you can monitor and compare as well the resources in one dashboard. It's very important, and the good thing that you can go inside each graph and create a rule based on your graph. So let's say you have a graph showing the CPU percentage. You can directly go inside this graph and create a rule or alert where you specify, let's say, now Sandeep will show us like if the CPU average is more than 90%, please send
Yes.
alert. And based on this alert, later on we'll show you how you can create action based on this alert.
Yes. In this dashboard, we are monitoring the database, like the average CPU and the input-output requests, and the storage space that are that is available over here in the database. Like if I want to monitor the CPU per usage, I can directly just click on the graph. It will automatically take me to the resources. Here I can specify the rule, like if the CPU percentage is more than 90%, here I will put the logic. Greater than or equal to aggression type maximum threshold 90. And like how frequently you want to monitor, like if the threshold is more than 90% for 15 minutes, it will trigger you an alert. Like the frequency of evaluation, it will evaluate for every 5 minutes to check the CPU percentage. Once you're done, you can configure the action group, where it can be a email and the phone number as well. Like can select the action group, and you can add the email IDs that you want to get the alert, so that those people will receive the alert on the emails. Not only that, like with the Azure Sentinel, you can take the automated action as well. Like as we told, with the same thing, if the SQL and the DB are there in the scale sets, with these type of rules, it will automatically scale up and scale down. And here we have one more dashboard for the front end application, where we are monitoring the average data in and data out. I think we don't have much data on this particular thing. Yeah. Yeah, this is the overview on the Azure dashboards with the monitoring thing. I think we are good to jump to the SQL.
Yes, yes. Let me share my screen to have
Sure.
overview about Azure SQL Managed Instance.
Yeah.
So I think everyone can see my screen now.
Yes.
Here I'll go through SQL Managed Instance, give you like a fast overview and show you some benefits from Azure SQL Managed Instance. So here, as you can see, this is the main page. Here we can create many managed instance, and each managed instance is it's a separate SQL server. So inside each SQL server, we can create different databases. I have one sample here. I will go through it. First, you will have the overview page where it shows you the pricing tier, the host link. We'll go through it. The status, and here as you can see, we have the databases, different type of databases. Here you got some reports, some insight on the total SQL managed instance. Then we can dig more inside each and every database. We'll go through it. First, let's go to compute plus storage, where you will get the pricing tiers. As you can see, we have two different pricing tiers, the general purpose and the business critical. The business critical will give you high availability and faster storage than the general purpose. Each one is for different workloads. The general purpose is used mostly for the like regular production workloads. And the business critical is for IO intensive and compute intensive workloads. Here, as Chris mentioned before, it's very easy to scale it. So you can easily here scale it up and scale it down. You can even scale up the storage and everything. This is like some insights on the cost of it. You will get it here. We'll have the connection strings. Here are some connection strings. If you want to connect from any application, you can connect through it. We'll have the delete database. It will, if you delete any database and you need to restore it, you will see it here. Of course, based on the retention policy, it will stay here. We have the properties of the managed instance. We have the failover groups, where you can create another SQL managed instance and add it to the same failover group. Whenever any database fail, it will jump automatically to the second failover group. We have the networking. Here we can enable, like it's important feature. We can enable the public endpoint data, but of course it's not recommended, but you can enable it so you can connect to this database from anywhere through a specific link. This host is specific for your database. It's unique for you. You should specify the port and put this host on your SQL server. I'll show you. You will access it through the port 3342. We have the security center, where you will get some insights and recommendation. This is very important. Like Microsoft is generating this. Of course, if you are using infrastructure as a service, you will not you will not notice these. You will get some good recommendation. Like here to enable Azure Defender for SQL. Here we have some vulnerabilities, and so go on. With the monitoring, we have the metrics, where we can check, let's say, the average CPU, or the maximum, the minimum, of course, based on your need. Then you can drill into logs and check the logs. If you have, let's say, a high CPU average or everything, you can check why you have this CPU and so on. So let's go and dig more inside one database. Now this is for the old managed instance for the SQL server as it is. Now you can go inside each database and get some insights as well. Like this is one database. Here it's very important. You can restore your database at any point that you need. So I will show you. You have a backup retention policy. You can specify if you need to back up your data for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, depend on your need. Like all your backup, which is up to 32 GB, is free. If you have the storage more than 32 GB, you will pay for it. The thing here is like it will be like a live backup. Here you can specify even the time and the date. So you can go, it's very important for the programmers. If they want to go back to a specific unique time, they can go and they can restore a database. A second database will be created so you can access it and check it. See what we have more. We have the logs. If any users access it on anything here, we don't have any logs. Here you have the recommendation and security alerts specific for this database. And here, if you have any automation thing that you need, let's say to back up, to restore anything here, you can have some automated task to do on this specific database. This is like generally regarding this. To connect to manage instance, it's very easy. I have here the SQL Management Studio. Let me disconnect, then connect. As I told you, you will get a host. This is public. You can connect through public or private. Of course, if you have point-to-site VPN, it's better, or site-to-site VPN, it's better. So you will connect to the private host. This is the public host. I'm connecting through the port 3342. We will have the logins. You will connect and your SQL server will open. One more important thing here to mention, you can back up your databases easily using, as Sandeep mentioned before, using blob storage. So you will connect your database, SQL managed instance, to your blob storage, and you will back up your database inside this blob storage. So back up.
And here, as you can see, the interface is exactly similar as the SQL that you usually install on the virtual machine. This is the SQL managed instance. When you use the SQL managed instance type, it's the closest version of SQL on Azure to your regular SQL that you usually use, the one that you install and you connect to it. It's the same, but the difference is that this is not installed on a virtual machine. Because here, some people have confusion between something called SQL databases on Azure and something called Azure SQL Managed Instance. SQL databases, usually you have to create and dedicate resources for each and every database. Here you can see on the left where Vince is showing you, you have here around 7 databases. In the SQL database, Azure SQL databases, every database will have its own resources. Let's say 25 DTUs or 2 cores for database 1, another 4 cores for database 2. Whereas on the SQL managed instance, all the databases share the same resources. If you have 8 cores, and 512 GB of storage. All the 7 databases will be sharing the same resources, and Microsoft in the backend through an AI technology, they will be kind of load balancing for every database the resources. Let's say database 1 needs more resources, it will give it more resources, and then there will be a balance among all the databases. So this is the main difference between SQL database, along with, of course, there are some feature and some security differences from the portal, but the main difference is the resources that you can share.
Yeah, as well as the control, with Azure SQL Managed Instance, you can control all your database, but with SQL database, you cannot control all the features with this database. There is some limitations. With Azure SQL database, you can create something called pooled database where it will share the DTUs, but it's complicated because each database will have, let's say, 5, it's DTU based, so 2 cores, 5 DTU, it will be spreaded like this. So for the user experience, I feel like SQL Managed Instance, it's very straightforward and easier for the end user. So I think.
And also one very important feature in SQL Managed Instance, you have the possibility to turn on the feature called Business Critical in SQL Managed Instance. When you turn on the feature Business Critical, I don't know if you worked before on SQL Enterprise Always On, where you have 2 or 3 databases with log shipping among all the databases. So let's say one database fails, the other goes up, and you can also read from different databases, and you read right on the main one. So the same thing will happen when you turn on the Business Critical. Automatically, Microsoft in the backend will create for you 3 different databases than the live one, and the data will be replicated among the 3 databases. For example, if the first database or the first server fails, automatically you will not feel anything, and you will be redirected to the other servers. This is how it works when it goes to Business Critical. By default, it's not business critical, it's general purpose. General purpose is usually used for daily use, for applications that are not very critical, for internal use, but business critical is usually used for public applications that are super important and cannot have any downtime.
So, if there is any questions, Rida.
Rita, you can move if you want. If they have questions, they can unmute themselves or post it. Just meanwhile, if you can walk us through the webinars and the offerings.
Of course. So let me tell you a bit more about our offers. So as a Microsoft Gold partner, we're able to offer you strong competitive offers. We're offering a free initial migration to Azure, as well as POCs to help you learn more about the services. We also offer free credit for the first month, starting at $200 and up to $3,000, depending on your consumption, of course. We will be contacting you after this webinar, and if you're interested in our services and our offers, we'll move forward with it. We also have the following upcoming webinars on Windows Virtual Desktop, Power Platforms, M365 Security, Azure Security, and Power BI. If you haven't registered for the ones on Wednesday, 27th of January, please do now. I will be also sending you the invitations for the rest of the upcoming events. Okay.
I'll give you a brief quickly on on every webinar here for you to know which one will be interesting for you. The one that is coming on Jan 27, which is on Wednesday, is a new virtualization feature introduced last year by Microsoft, which is called Windows Virtual Desktop, where we will show you here the capabilities on how to virtualize completely your desktop, your environment, how to access it, how you can have high performance computing, how you can lower the cost of the hardware, lower the cost of the virtualization, the VDI, which is currently known on local as the VDI environment, how you can implement it on Azure. The second part, which is the Power Automate or the Power Platform on February 3, we will show you here the capabilities of SharePoint and Power Apps and how you can build and automate your business processes within your organization using those tools. that I'm pretty sure most of you have them but are not using them. So we will guide you on the capabilities and to which extent we'll be working on that. On February 10, we will show you how you can use Azure as a backup and the DR site for your environment. So let's say you want a complete DR site and your data center or any of your servers fails on premise, how you can have a DR site on Azure, how you can secure your environment, how you can also have, we are talking about advanced security management. If you've heard about SIEM solution before, like FortiSIEM, like Alien Vault, Azure now have their own SIEM solution, which is Azure Sentinel. So we will also show you the Azure Sentinel, Azure Security Center, how you can monitor your on-premise and your Azure resources from one dashboard. On February 17th, it's the secure, monitor, and manage your resources with Azure Sentinel. Yeah, this is the one I just mentioned. We have on February 24, the Power BI. If you've also heard about Power BI and data warehousing, we'll be showing you a webinar on how to use Power BI, how to do data warehousing, and what are the capabilities. This is for Feb. We'll have a set of webinars also in March, and every month we will have at least 3 to 4 webinars coming. So we'll keep you updated on that. So I guess this is it. Thank you very much. We'll be definitely contacting you. You can also contact us for any queries. And thanks again, and hope to see you next time in the coming webinars.